am MInya from GMSA API YouTube channel. This is a project carried out by GMSA in order to help our sisters and brothers who are going to face the A-level in this year. We are focusing on covering the last lessons that you may have missed because of the current situation in our country. All the lessons are conducted by us who have faced the A-level examination last year and are qualified to enter a medical faculty. Today, I will be covering the last 3 subtopics of environmental biology, the 8th unit in your resource book. The 3 topics are conservation, global warming and climate change, and conventions. Before starting the lesson, there are a few things I need to mention. The first thing is, I am going to strictly stick to the resource book because if you see the past papers questions, they are strictly taken from a TG or your resource book, and the answers are fully taken from the resource book or the TG itself. And another thing is that there are very lengthy paragraphs in this lesson. So for your better understanding and for easy memorization, I will be breaking those paragraphs into points. Before starting the lesson, I will give you a small summary of the things you are going to learn today. The first part, in conservation, we are going to talk about the principal goal of conservation and what are the 2 types of conservation methods. They are in situ conservation and ex situ conservation. And in the second topic, global warming and climate change, we are going to define what is a climate change and how it affects. Then the problems arisen because of climate change, global warming, ozone layer depletion, acid rains, and desertification. We are going to talk about the causes for these problems and the harmful effects created by each and every one. In the third part, we are going to talk about conventions which are made in international level, and there are also conventions made in Sri Lanka. So I will start with conservation part. The principal goal of conservation is a very small paragraph, so I broke it into 3 parts. The main point here is to ensure the long-term survival of as many species as possible. That's the main point. And the second thing is, we have to specifically protect the species which have faced the danger of extinction. And we need to ensure their survival and the continuation of their reproduction. There are 2 methods of conservation. They are in situ conservation and ex situ conservation. The main difference between these 2 are, in situ conservation, the species are kept in its own natural habitat, while in ex situ conservation, they are taken away from their natural habitat. So let's discuss it in details. In situ conservation, the species is protected and the reproduction is ensured in their own natural habitat. Here, a large and enough population is kept while providing them with an adequate and appropriate habitat space. The reason for writing these ones specifically in the whiteboard is, in 2013 there was a past paper question, actually an essay one. There were 3 parts to the question, and in the C part they asked, briefly describe the measures taken to conserve biodiversity at national and global level. There you have mentioned the 2 conservation methods as well as a brief description about the conventions. So the in situ conservation part in your resource book and the old TG was exactly the same. So in that marking scheme, they have taken 1 point for large enough population and another point for adequate and appropriate habitat space. So you will see there are small points that you will need to focus on while studying this lesson. And also in 2018 there was a structured essay question about what is in situ conservation. So the examples for in situ conservation are national parks such as Yala and MInya, forest reserves such as Kanmeliya and Pidrutapagala. In ex situ conservation, the species is taken out of its natural habitat and looked after in a place where their survival and reproduction is ensured. Examples are zoological gardens and botanical gardens. There you might have seen that the humans provide them with the surrounding that is somewhat similar to their natural habitat. So that's what we do in ex situ conservation. So let's talk about global warming and climate change. In your resource book, you will find two definitions for climatic change. One is provided by UNFCCC in 2011 and the other is provided by IPCC. This means United Nations Framework Convention on Climatic Change, and this means the Intergovernmental Panel on Climatic Change. In the first definition provided by them is in a climatic change refers to a significant long-term change of climate attributed directly or indirectly to the human activities, and it alters the composition of the global atmosphere in addition to natural climatic variabilities which are observed over comparable time periods. The thing is, I have broken it into 5 points. It is something significant because it is something noticeable or it has a major effect, and it prevails for a long term, and it is a change of climate. The third is attributed directly human activities. The fourth is it alters the composition of the global atmosphere. And the fifth point is, in addition natural climatic variability observed over comparable time. Like I said before, it is something noticeable and also it prevails for a longer duration. It doesn't last for a day or two but for months and years, and it is directly or indirectly related to human activities. These human activities affect these climatic changes, and also there is a general composition of atmosphere which is observed over a long comparable time period, something like a pattern, and in climatic change it changes or alters this composition of global atmosphere. In the second definition, it is somewhat similar to this one, but they have used words such as statistically significant change in the state of the properties of the climate, which persists for an extended period, typically decades or longer. Here they have given an example. They have mentioned that it may last for 10 years or more than 10 years. So we'll talk about global warming. And what is global warming? Global warming, it is the increase of the average temperature on the Earth's surface due to the enhanced greenhouse effect. When we speak about Earth's surface, it refers to two terms. They are atmospheric temperature and oceanic temperature. And we have used the enhanced greenhouse effect. This means naturally the greenhouse effect is something that happens. It is a natural process. But when an excessive amount of greenhouse gases are collected in the atmosphere, that causes the greenhouse effect to happen much more. So it strengthens this greenhouse effect and it becomes much stronger, causing the temperature of the Earth's surface to rise. This climatic change includes warming and the effects of warming. The effects of warming are excessive rainfalls, severe droughts, melting of glaciers, etc. So this is the reason global warming is called a symptom of much greater problems that may arise due to climate change. So we will talk about the contributing factors on global warming and climate change. The first is the increase of carbon dioxide and greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. Carbon dioxide is considered as the most common gas to affect greenhouse effect. This is carbon dioxide is mainly emitted into the atmosphere by the burning of fossil fuels in vehicles, in industries, or in generating electricity. And other than that, burning of forest and solid waste also produce carbon dioxide. Generally, we can say that burning of organic matter emit carbon dioxide. So the next gas that affect this global warming effect is methane. Methane, the quantity of methane in atmosphere is less than the quantity of carbon dioxide, but it has a very high potential of global warming. The main emitting sources of methane are anaerobic decomposition, paddy cultivation, cattle farming, and enteric fermentation. Anaerobic decomposition is the decomposition which happens in the absence of oxygen, like in manure and waste management. In paddy cultivation, the bacteria in the waterlogged soil produces a large quantity of methane. In cattle farming, the guts of animals such as cattle are the residents of methanogenic microorganisms. So they produce methane and it gets added into the atmosphere. Next is nitrogen. nitrous oxide or N2O. This is a neutral gas which doesn't have acidic or basic properties. So it is less reactive in nature. So it remains for a longer time period in the atmosphere. The main way of adding nitrous oxide to the atmosphere is the byproduct of fertilizer and using of these fertilizers. Other than that, it is emitted by the combustion of certain materials such as biomass in nitric acid production, also fossil fuel combustion in internal combustion of vehicle engines. The other category we are going to talk about is PFCs, HFCs and SFCs. This is perfluorinated compounds. This is hydrofluorocarbons. These also have a very high global warming potential. And the fifth one is black carbon or carbon particles. These are very small particular substances which ranges from 2.5 micrometers to 10 micrometers, and their heat absorbing capacity is much more greater than carbon dioxide. These carbon particles are suspended in the lower atmosphere and they absorb the heat, and it causes the temperature of the atmosphere to rise. Apart from these gases I have mentioned, there are gases which have indirect radioactive forcing effects, such as carbon monoxide, nitrogen oxides, NO2, sulfur dioxide and tropospheric ozone. We call it ground level ozone. This ozone is formed in the ground level because of the photochemical reaction. So, other than the gases we discussed, water vapor, non-methane volatile organic compounds are also considered as greenhouse gases. So, this is the first cause for global warming and climate change. The next is deforestation and decreasing of the vegetation cover of the world. So, at present, conversion of tropical forest lands to commercial agricultural plantations like palm oil have caused a mass deforestation. So, how deforestation affects global warming? It is because forests fix carbon dioxide via the process called photosynthesis. We call it carbon sequestration. This is a word that you will find in a resource book. This simply means the long-term storage of carbon dioxide or any sources of carbon to either reduce or delay the global warming effect and avoid the dangerous climatic change. So, deforestation reduces carbon sequestration capacity. That means the soil carbon, amount of soil carbon reduces, increasing the atmospheric carbon dioxide. So, the third cause is destroying the large quantity of phytoplanktons because of UV radiation. this UV radiation happens because of the depletion of the ozone layer. First thing, what are phytoplanktons? They are planktons that absorb energy via the process photosynthesis. This destroying of phytoplanktons is something similar to deforestation. Phytoplanktons which live in warm seas are very useful to maintain the oxygen and carbon dioxide balance. They absorb carbon dioxide in the process of photosynthesis, and this absorption capacity is much more greater than the terrestrial plants. Though phytoplanktons are unicellular microorganisms, they say that 60% and 70% of carbon dioxide absorption is done by these phytoplanktons. So, the depletion of the ozone layer causes the UV radiation to reach the Earth's surface, and it destroys these phytoplanktons. By destroying them, the carbon dioxide absorption capacity of oceans decreases, causing the atmospheric carbon dioxide, the amount of atmospheric carbon dioxide to increase. So, we are going to talk about the effects of global warming and climate change. The first is sea level rising. There are two ways or two causes that result in sea level rising. The first is the melting of glaciers in the polar regions. The second is the thermal expansion of water. When the temperature of the atmosphere increases, it causes the glaciers to melt, which results in addition of an excessive amount of water to the oceans, causing the sea level to rise. The other thing is the thermal expansion of water. The volume expands. The volume of water expands, causing the sea level to rise. So, you may think that it only affects the polar regions, but no, all the island nations are affected by this sea level rising. The second is extreme weather conditions. Of course, there are changes in weather like rainfalls, droughts, but there are extreme levels like prolonged droughts and intense rainfalls. This causes floods, landslides, storms, etc., and it causes loss, damages, and disasters. The third is less food production. Due to the unexpected extreme weather conditions, it may be due to floods, prolonged droughts, or intensive rainfalls. The crop production will be getting a loss all around the world, and it is something that we would have to face as an effect of global warming and climate change. Then the degradation of coral reefs. The corals bleach, coral bleaching and degradation can occur because of global warming, and because of this, there are a lot of organisms that depend on these corals in oceans. So when these corals are destroyed, these organisms are facing a great danger. So, according to the recent reports, coral populations will collapse by 2100 due to this increased temperature and acidity of these oceans. And the increase of the insect population is another effect of global warming. Scientists have found out that the rising of the temperature, not too hot or not too cold, is really beneficial for these insects because their metabolism increases and they need more food and they grow much faster. Because of this, mosquito-borne malaria and dengue-like diseases will spread than present, and also the overgrown insect population will be a great threat for the agricultural activities like for crops. The sixth is loss of biodiversity. There are climatic changes and global warming, and it may cause the reducing of the biodiversity. The ecosystems change, the structures of ecosystems change, and also because of these, species may move from their original place to another places, and some may survive and some may not. The species that won't survive may face extinction. So, before talking about the ozone layer depletion, we will see the past paper questions related to the global warming part. In 2013 A-level paper, there was a structured essay. The questions are as follows. Name 5 greenhouse gases. Explain how greenhouse gases contribute to sea level rise. Here, indirectly they are asking how global warming contributes to the sea level rise. And the third is, in addition to sea level rise, what are the other consequences of the emission of greenhouse gases? What is the International Convention protocol which help to control the greenhouse gases? In 2016 A-level paper, there was a structured essay question. What is global warming? Name 5 atmospheric gases that contribute to global warming. And in the most recent one, 2019 A-level paper, in the new syllabus 1, there was an MCQ question. Which of the following doesn't contribute to global warming? Ozone layer depletion, cattle farming, ozone in low atmosphere, growth of phytoplankton, and water vapor in the atmosphere. So the answer is the growth of phytoplankton. So, let's talk about the ozone layer depletion. The ozone layer is situated in the stratosphere, ranging from 10 to 50 kilometers. Here, the ozone particles are concentrated, and the importance of ozone layer is that it acts as a barrier to protect the Earth's surface from the harmful ultraviolet rays of the sun. They said that the concentration of ozone in the stratosphere remains relatively constant, and it is 300 to 350 Dobson units. This is a unit used to measure the concentration of ozone in the atmosphere above a certain point on Earth's surface. So we call ozone depletion, ozone layer depletion, when this falls below 200 Dobson units. This is the average level, so when it falls below 200, we call it ozone depletion. So the causes for this ozone layer depletion are the man-made ozone depleting chemicals. And the thinning of this ozone layer is called as ozone hole. There is no literal hole there, it is the thinning of this ozone layer. So the contributing factors for ozone layer depletion are, just like I had said before, the ozone ozone-depleting chemicals made by man. So examples are chlorofluorocarbons, hydrochlorofluorocarbons, bromomethane and halogens. So the ozone depletion occurs when the natural production and the destruction of ozone is that balance is lost or disturbed. So the effects of ozone layer depletion. The increase of the penetration of UVB radiation is likely to have a very deep effect on human and animal health. So mostly on human health. Before talking further about the topic, I would like to mention some facts. In UV radiation, there are subtypes like UVA, UVB. Here they have specifically mentioned UVB because UVB radiation is the particular subtype which is associated with the skin burning. So when we talk about the effects of ozone layer depletion, it can cause risks of eye diseases like cataract in the eye, skin cancers and infectious diseases. And it is also a known fact that the plants, the physiological and developmental process of plants are also affected by UV radiation. And also UVB radiation is likely to cause mutations and it will alter the biodiversity and ecosystem. And this UVB radiation directly destroys phytoplanktons, which are the foundation of aquatic food webs. And because of this, the food webs of the composition of the food webs of the oceans may decrease. And also UVB radiation can cause harmful effects of early stages of animals such as crabs, shrimps, amphibians and also fish. The other environmental problem we are going to talk about, which has caused as climate change, it is the desertification. It is the process of land degradation in arid, semi-arid and dry, subhumid areas, which are resulting from various factors including climatic variations and human activities. This is the definition provided by the UNCCD in 1994. And according to them, there are two main driving forces of desertification. They are climatic variations and human activities. It is said that the human activities are main cause of this desertification. And effects of desertification. The desertification reduces the ecosystem services, also reduce the biodiversity, and it decreases the vegetation cover and it causes the scarcity of water. When the vegetation cover is reduced, it directly affects the water cycle and people and animals may face, and also plants may face this scarcity of water. And also it destroys the habitats of animals and plant species. And because of this desertification, it reduces the agricultural activities, and because of that, humans as well as animals may face a scarcity of food. The people in these affected areas, the areas affected by desertification, and the people who are living in those areas may face serious health problems because of the droughts and land degradation. So, when we talk about a long-term bad effect that can happen because of this desertification is that the carbon storage capacity of plants and soil may decrease. So, before going to the next part, acid rains, I would like to mention you about the past paper questions. The past paper questions about ozone layer depletion are in 2014 A-level paper. There was a structured essay question. Name the 4 sections of the atmosphere in correct order under the order from the surface of Earth to outer space. In which section of atmosphere the ozone layer is found? What is the advantage of ozone layer? And what are the adverse impacts of destruction of the ozone layer? Also, there was an essay question in 2018 A-level paper. Write a short note on ozone layer depletion. Then when we come to the desertification part, in 2017, there was a structured essay question. Mention 4 human activities that contribute to desertification. So, acid rains. Acid rains is one of the serious global environmental issues. Acid rains emerge due to air pollution, mainly because of sulfur dioxide and oxides of nitrogen. These oxides are released to the atmosphere during the processes such as combustion of solid waste, combustion of fossil fuel in thermal power plants and vehicle engines. Acid rain is a commonly used word for acid deposition. And the normal rainwater may contain a pH value of 5.6 and you will see that this is slightly acidic. It is because the carbon dioxide in atmosphere dissolves in water and produce carbonic acid. But in acid rains, the pH of the water is much lesser than this 5.6. So the contributing factors for acid rains I have discussed earlier, the sulfur dioxide and the oxides of nitrogen. And here what happens is sulfur dioxide converts into sulfuric acid and the oxides of nitrogen, they get converted into nitric acid. So these two, both of these are acids and it causes the acidity of water. So the effects of acid rains. These acid rains directly cause severe damage to buildings, building structures and marble statues. Marble statues are made of calcium carbonate, mainly calcium carbonate. So these calcium carbonates react with acids and they dissolve, causing the damages to these statues. Also, the acid rains they also may increase the acidity of fresh water in ecosystems, and because of that, the structure and the composition of ecosystems might change. These acid rains also destroy soil organisms and lose soil fertility because of this accumulation of acids in this soil. And also It leaches metals such as copper, aluminium and other heavy metals, and these metals I have mentioned earlier, they get collected in the waterways or natural water reservoirs and as well as in drinking water, and it may cause very harmful health conditions. Also, these acid rains cause significant damage to forests and also the small plants which are important to the ecosystem. So, the past paper questions from this part, there was an MCQ question in 2014. If coal with a high sulfur content is used in coal thermal power plants, which one of the following is most likely to happen? The answers are reduction of crop harvest, occurrence of skin cancer, drowsiness, impaired vision and erosion of building. Here the answer is erosion of building. When the coal with high sulfur content is used in coal thermal power plants, the sulfur reacts with oxygen, forming sulfur dioxide and resulting in forming sulfuric acid. Sulfuric acid contributes to acid rains. So you know that the erosion of building and damage into marble statues is a harmful effect of these acid rains. Next we are going to talk about the conventions and the protocols. The first one is CITES. It is the Convention of International Trading of Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora. The main goal is to ensure the international trade of specimens so that it doesn't threaten their survival. In CITES, when we are exporting some species, special permissions and export permits are required. So these particular export permits are provided if this exporting process doesn't threaten the survival of that particular species. The examples for such specimens in Sri Lanka are the skin of Sri Lankan leopard, generally known as Kotia, and cycas. The general name is Madu. So the conventions we are going to speak after this mainly focuses on the conservation of the environment. CBD, or the Convention on Biological Diversity. There are three main goals of this convention. The first is the conservation of biological diversity. For an example, the conservation of genetics, species and ecosystems. The second goal is sustainable use of components in biodiversity. Here, laws are imposed, or limits are imposed for over-exploitation. The third is the fair and equitable sharing of benefits arising from genetic resources. Here, the genetics resources and species, they are shared in between countries without countries. In Ramsar Convention, also known as the Wetland Convention, the main target here is the conservation of and the wise use of wetlands and their resources. There are 6 Ramsar sites in Sri Lanka. They are Anavilundava, Undala, Kumana, Maduganga, Vankale and Vilpattu. MARPOL Convention. This is associated with the preventing or the reducing the pollution by ships because of operational or accidental causes. Their main target is to preserve marine environment in an attempt to completely eliminate pollution by oil and other harmful substances and to minimize the spillage of such substances. In Montreal, the Montreal Protocol is about the depletion of the ozone layer. So their target is to protect ozone layer by phasing out the production of numerous substances that are responsible for the ozone depletion. The Kyoto Protocol sets greenhouse gases emission reduction rates. For example, in the time period from 2013 to 2020, the parties are committed to reduce the emission of these greenhouse gases at least by 18%. The Basel Convention is about control transboundary movements of hazardous waste and the disposal of them. So their target is to protect human health and the environment against the adverse effects of hazardous waste. All of these conventions are international level ones. So there are environmental legislations and policies developed in Sri Lanka too. They are updated from time to time, and they mainly focus on the conservation of the environment and the conservation of the wildlife and flora. Examples are Fauna and Flora Protection Ordinance, we call it FFPO, and the National Environment Act, NEA. And the operation and the management of national parks, strict natural reserves, jungle corridors and sanctuaries are done under this. So that's the end of our lesson. Hope it was useful to you, and all the best for your upcoming A-level exam, and thank you for joining us. Goodbye.